Hmm? Ah!
Who am I? Who am I?
Your commander,
And who are you?
Jon Snow.
Who are you?
Your steward.
You want to lead one day? We'll learn how to follow.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Sir Duncan, Lord of Castle Stirling.
And I'm Lady Kristen of House McWegglebergino.
And this is Game of Microphones, episode 53, as we get deeper into the series Rewatch, this time covering Game of Thrones Season 2, Episode 1, The North Remembers. And before we go any further with this podcast, it's time for a special announcement. And much as Tyrion himself was the gift to Daenerys in last season, or whenever he showed up to Meereen there with Jorah, Lady Kristen is the announcement here for Game of Microphones. That is right.
Yay!
Yes. Yeah, big yay. That's right. A welcome to our new full-time co-host, Lady Kristen of House McWegglebergino, first of her name, mother of underlings, and true heir to sarcasm, and ruler of coffee and wine as well. Welcome to Game of Microphones, Kristen, officially as our full-time co-host.
Thank you very much. I'm excited.
Good. So are we, and I'm sure everybody else is excited to have you here as well. This is going to be awesome.
I think so.
Definitely. Just so you guys know, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. We're doing the rewatch from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. At this point, that means having seen up through Season 7, Episode 7. So this is your warning. If you're not caught up, if you don't want to be spoiled, you can still bail now.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. But let's jump right into it. Our top 5 highlights for Season 2, Episode 1, The North Remembers. Take it away, Lady Kristen.
Take it away. I will take it away. Okay, so I am going to start off by talking about our new characters.
Yay.
We have new characters and new places ready for Season 2. It kind of expands our universe a little, which I think is wonderful. We have Stannis, Melisandre, Davos, Craster, Gilly, and we have a new religion with the Lord of Light, which I think is interesting. We've seen the 7. I think we've only seen the 7, the old gods and the new, and that's about it. At this point, are those 2. So now we have the Lord of Light, and the way that it's introduced is just awesome. With Melisandre, I remember the first time I saw Melisandre, I just kind of could not figure out who this weird woman was. It was interesting. I mean, I read about it in the books, and I think that they did a really, really good job depicting her.
I agree. Yeah, very book true, I think. The sort of heart-shaped face and the pale skin and dark red hair and whatnot.
So mysterious, you just kind of wonder what's going on with her. And it's funny because, now, she's just she's starting to gain her confidence back, in Season 7, but she's broken at the same time. She's been let down so many times, and she doesn't really know what to do with her belief and where her path is. And it's so different from when we were first introduced to her, and she's just confident. I mean, she and the Lord of Light are like the same almost in her, in her opinion. So
she's in full fanatic mode.
Right. And she's got everybody eating out of the palm of her hand.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And it's we get these first impressions of these characters that are always so spot on, and we sort of get a really good first impression of the Lord of Light and the religion of R'hllor in this moment too. And we see right off the bat that the night is dark and full of terrors. It's the first time we're introduced to it, is amidst the firelight as the old gods burn alive and surrounded by the darkness of Dragonstone. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it wasn't until recently also that I realized that they were burning the Seven. I felt really dumb for not realizing it so earlier.
Nah.
It's also the first time we really hear about Lightbringer and that prophecy as well. So it's just like this one scene, and I think it was only maybe once. Let me look back in my notes. I think it's only once that we're at Dragonstone in the entire episode, and we get so much information in that time.
Yeah, we get so much. No joke. This is my number 4, too, is the first appearance of Stannis and Melisandre, so I'll just, we kind of mash together here, I guess, a little bit. Yeah, what is it? Right off the bat, we're learning about Azor Ahai and how it's prophesied that a leader would pull Lightbringer from the fire. And then we get a really good character read on Stannis when he clarifies to the guy who's writing the letter about Joffrey's bastardhood to send to all the lords of the Seven Kingdoms. Stannis clarifies that, no, King Robert was not his beloved brother. The guy who's writing it says, a harmless courtesy, my lord. And he says, a lie, take it out. So we know he's a straight shooter who's not going to play any fucking fancy games or anything like that. And the guy's continuing to write, and he says something about Jaime Lannister, and Stannis cuts in again, Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer. Call him what he is. And then further corrects it, telling him to add in a sir, saying whatever else he is, the man's still a knight. So he's got his sense of honor still. He's treating people with the titles and respect that they deserve. He has a great line to Davos. I don't know if you caught it. He tells him, I've always served thieves according to their deserts, as you well know, Davos. His punishment is dealt out based on the actions, essentially. Which Davos knows well as having been being served by Stannis previously. Yeah, I like how Stannis is so straight and so true, because he always reminds me of somebody. He doesn't really want to be king, but he knows that it's his right to be king, so he's going to be king because that's what's supposed to happen. Yeah, and he just backing down would do himself dishonor. Basically, it would make him seem weak, and it's hard for me to describe. I'm struggling to find the words, but it would be a slight against himself not to claim it. Essentially, so he just sort of has to. He has the same fortitude and strength that Robert had, just in a much different way. He was more rigid and more unbendable, and Robert was strong, but he was physically strong, and he was able to take what he wanted, but he also used that for his own personal pleasure too. Right. Do you remember what the quote is about these three brothers? That Renly was brass and copper, looks really great, but doesn't have much value. Stannis is pure iron. He's rigid and will break before he bends. But Robert was the true steel, which is a pretty cool analogy to compare these three Baratheon brothers. I like it. Yeah. I definitely like that. So we got the arrival of, who else was it? We got Stannis, we got the Lord of Light, we got Melisandre. Anything else about your number 5 you wanted to say? We also got to and we'll probably talk about them later, but we also have been introduced not only north of the wall, but to this really weird dude, Craster. Right. Actually, before we go to Craster, I have something else to mention about. We need to talk about Melisandre, about her arrival, because not only is she wild and fanatic and has this crazy belief, and she has a king essentially under her thumb at this point, and she's a really interesting character, But we get to see an attempted assassination on Melisandre in this episode.
Yes, and you know that she's legit when you see this.
Right, so we end up learning that there is something to what she's saying, that she is backed by some kind of power. How crazy is that? Maester Cresson, right off the bat, running along the beach with a torch trying to stop them from following through with this ceremony and burning the Seven. He's trying to argue with Davos and tell him to tell Stannis the truth. And I like Davos's line where he says, well, what is the truth? What am I supposed to tell him? And then they're continuing their meeting in the map room or wherever they are. And Cresson is handed a glass of wine and puts a little tablet in it, which Davos notices, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing, man, essentially. So Cresson apologizes to Melisandre and to Stannis. He's just a maester. He's sworn to serve no matter what gods they believe in, essentially. So he proposes a drink to Melisandre, and he goes over and takes a sip himself and passes her the glass, and she just stands there and waits, and he starts to be weakened by the poison, and liquid starts dripping out of his nose. And she waits until she sees that, yes, the wine is poisoned. And then she brings the cup to her lips and starts to take a sip. And Davos is watching in shock.
Davos's mind looks like it just was totally blown when that happened.
Blown. This actor is
He's
amazing.
going, why are you, like, you can almost see him going, why are you drinking? He's dying. What are you doing?
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Like, he's just totally out of, like, has no idea what's happening, and she proceeds to drink it and be unfazed entirely by the wine itself. And as Maester Cresson falls to the ground, dying, and blood is just hemorrhaging, and he's pouring everywhere, she says, "The night is dark and full of terrors, old man, but the fire burns them all away." And at this point in my notes, I just have in all caps, this episode is so good. So awesome.
Such a great introduction to her. I mean, she just got one of the best introductions of any character.
Right. Yeah. And as loathsome as she is at times, it's just a fantastic intro. I agree.
Oh, I've spent much more time hating her than loving her. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I loved her once. And that was when she did a very good thing at the beginning of season 6.
What did she do? I don't remember.
She brought my boy back to life.
Oh, right. Season 6. Oh, yeah. Okay. I gotcha. Oh, man.
That's it.
Your boy, Jon Snow. So you were bringing up Craster too, right?
Yeah. So we see Craster, and it's fun because we see Gilly. She says one little line, and she's, serving plates, and she's kind of like Sansa in that, she just says this line like, "We are very happy to be protected by our father and our Lord husband," or whatever that she says, right? Not Lord husband, but she says something along those lines. And then, she just walks away. So she seems like this meek little, woman, which she is. And I think she's pregnant at the time, but we don't know.
Oh, yeah, she is. I found the quote. She says, "This is our place. Our husband keeps us safe. Better to live free than die a slave." And it's funny because she's totally mirroring Sansa.
Right,
exactly. In this episode, we have two women who are like being forced to give this, to say the lines, essentially.
Well, essentially, they are being slaves, right?
Yeah, she's living
Gilly
totally as
a slave.
Right.
Without knowing it. So, it's just, I don't know. Craster is immediately hateful.
Oh, yeah. Super hateful.
Yeah. So I think I don't have more on him later. I think that I just have him in my notes later. Just Craster and how he is with, Jorah Mormont, and just, the old bear, man. He's such a guy that just doesn't back down from anything. And he's just being so nice, not nice, but what's the word that I'm looking for? He's being so accommodating to Craster and diplomatic. Yeah, absolutely. But then he says, the greatest line in the entire episode, which is, if you want to learn to lead, you must first learn to follow.
Right.
If you want to lead, you must first learn to follow. And essentially he's doing that in that house. He's following whatever Craster says by keeping his men and he's leading his men and keeping them safe while they're beyond the wall and north of the wall to this reprehensible man.
Right. Yeah,
So-
it's cool. We get a couple examples of leadership being taught by elders in this episode. We have Mormont teaching John that if you want to lead one day, then you need to learn how to follow. We have Maester Luwin teaching Bran that part of the duty of being Lord of Winterfell and being a leader is that you have to listen to people who you might not want to listen to otherwise. We have Maester Crescent leading by example, trying to assassinate Melisandre and do what he knows is right. Yeah, a few examples of that in this episode. And are you familiar with Plato's allegory of the cave?
You know how long it's been since I read any type of philosophy, man? I was in my 20s.
Well, you're not still in your 20s?
No, man.
Well, it's
That was very nice of you to say. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So basically, Plato's allegory of the cave is that when you have people who are under conditions of servitude, essentially, that they don't necessarily know it at the time. So like you were saying with Gilly, you have people who are being held captive in a cave and they're tied up and all they can see is, their shadows dancing from the firelight. And so you get somebody who comes in from the outside and tells them of the vast world outside of the cave with the light. And
I do know
freedom.
this. I do know this as you're talking about it. Yeah,
Nice.
That's a great poll, man. Good
Yeah,
job.
thanks. Oh, yeah. So yeah, someone comes in from the outside, tells you of the real world, and these people who've lived in the cave their whole lives they don't buy it because it's completely outside of everything that they know.
Right.
This person seems crazy to them. They just know the dancing shadows from the firelight. And so eventually when they're brought out of the cave and they realize what true freedom is, which is, I feel like Gilly is totally in that position in this episode. Better to live free than die
Sam brings
a slave.
her to the light.
Yeah. Sam
Totally.
helps bring her out of the cave when they leave after, eventually. That's
Absolutely. Gosh, that's great. I'm very impressed by that. That's wonderful. I like that.
Thanks. Yeah, I just thought of it when you were talking there. So we tend to have this effect on each other, I think, where we make
I
each
think
other
so.
think a
We
little
do.
more
We
deeply.
tend to really get more intelligent as we talk to each other. As soon as the mic turns off, I go back to being, a mindless slug. Just waiting for the next episode.
Just waiting to get salted.
Right.
My number one was Craster's Keep. So
Oh, we could talk about it more if you
we'll
want.
just talk a little bit more about it. Or yeah, we can just talk about it a little bit more about it later, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do have, because I have more on Craster too that we
Okay.
could talk about later as well. But do you have what was your number 5?
My number 5 is the arrival of Tyrion to King's Landing.
Yay, that was my number 1. Yay.
Well struck, dog! When we arrive at King's Landing, right off the bat, we get the Hound just mercilessly pummeling some red shirt knight in a melee.
I think about you every single time I see the Hound now. Every single time. Yeah, which is a lot right now. So
Nice. Yeah, I like the Hound, so it could be worse associations, I guess. Like if you thought of me every time you saw Craster.
or Ramsey.
Yeah, Ramsey would be bad too. Oh, man. So yeah, the Hound is just pummeling this guy and just drops him off this ledge. It's just really brutal. Watching it, I was just trying to imagine how they filmed it because this guy falls, the stunt guy here wearing the armor, falls onto stone floor from probably a good 5 or 6 feet directly onto his side. And simultaneously, the camera is panning upwards. So if he was being held by some type of crane or something that dropped him, it moved out of the way very rapidly to get out of the camera shot. So I'm wondering how far this guy really fell and how do they accomplish this shot at all. I hope that somehow I'll be able to find some behind the scenes information on this, although I highly doubt it. I'll never know.
It really happened, Duncan.
It really happened.
Yeah, he really died. It's Game of Thrones is a snuff film. I'm surprised you didn't know that.
That guy is #dead as fuck. Yeah. So then Dantos shows up and he's all drunk and unprepared, and I wanted to talk about this scene in general too because it's just so funny. I love how Joffrey offers him offers Dantos some wine after Dantos says he's not drunk, he's only had 2 glasses, and Joffrey's like, "Oh, that's not much at all. Would you like some wine, Sir Dantos?" Sir Dantos.
Thank you, Your Grace. It's very kind of you. Yes, thank you.
So funny. And so what I thought was really funny is how Joffrey doesn't even really need to explicitly instruct Sir Meryn to treat Dantos like a piece of shit. All he has to say is kindly, "Sir Meryn, help Sir Dantos celebrate my name day. See that he drinks his fill."
His fill, right.
and 99% of the time, if any given person were to give this order to somebody, right, they would interpret that literally and just try to, help give this guy a couple glasses of wine and help him celebrate, right? But not with Joffrey. With Joffrey, you know that this is not what it seems at its face.
Well, anytime Joffrey is being nice to anybody, he's not. He's being super, super psycho.
Super psycho.
I mean, he is the worst kind of sociopath.
He's Caligula.
So I can't even imagine that he would even employ anybody with any sort of heart to them. Yeah. Which is remarkable since he has Sandor, and he doesn't realize that the Hound is this big pile of mush underneath all of the rough exterior that he has.
Yeah, just a big teddy dog.
He is. But Meryn Trent, I mean, you really learn how awful he is when he gets to Bravos.
Yeah. Really
so,
bad.
So glad for his demise. But yeah, it is interesting how, you have to know that, though. I mean, they have to know, okay, I serve a crazy king, a crazy, entitled boy king who doesn't go to war, but kills at his pleasure just to do it.
They definitely know it too. Barristan says as much to Dany about serving the Mad King. He tells her with no hesitation that he was mad.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So right after that, they're helping Sir Dantos celebrate, and Joffrey says something and calls him a fool, and Sansa points out, "Oh, he is a fool. You're so clever to see it," and basically ends up saving Dantos' life by
manipulating
Joffrey and having him turn him into his fool. And then out of nowhere, Tyrion shows up with a great little line, "Beloved nephew." Everybody turns.
We missed you. We looked for you on the battlefield.
Right.
Where were you?
You were nowhere to be found, which is reminded me of Ned saying to Sir Arthur Dane, I looked for you on the Trident at the battlefield, and he was nowhere to be found there either. So that's kind of a cool little parallel.
So I read in some show notes
nice.
over this week about Tyrion's entrance. I didn't mean to step on you, but
no, not at all.
But it talked about Tyrion arriving in his armor.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that too.
Oh, then go for it.
No. You have something different. I was just going to mention that he was wearing armor.
Oh, well, so the idea is that he was supposed to arrive in the armor to kind of show that he has been in it and to show that he is, kind of this hardened war guy now. And they said, so, what did they say? It was Weiss and Benioff that talked about it. But they said he clearly did not go the entire distance in his armor. So this was a very planned entrance for Tyrion.
Yeah, it was a show.
Yeah, he pulled the horses over, got into the armor, and then came into King's Landing to, to make his own entrance for Joffrey. So I just thought it was interesting.
That's really cool. I like that too. It's interesting that you brought it up too, because this is the first time around watching this episode that it like stuck out to me that he was wearing armor. And there's another scene where when he arrives, right? Because the scene's coming up where you mentioned that he's hardened, at this point. And he kind of illustrates that later when he's talking to Cersei, and he says, "It's been a remarkable journey, I was taken prisoner. I slept in a sky cell. I pissed off the edge of the wall. I fought with the mountain clans, the hill tribesmen, etc." now he's hand of the fucking king. Like, so, yeah, he's definitely hardened at this point, and I really did enjoy the fact that he showed up in armor. And
I just love how he unhinged Cersei and Joffrey just by arriving. And they both said the same thing. I took note of that, how
nice.
Joffrey goes, wait, why are you here? You know, like some child tone. And then Cersei just looks at him and is like, why are you here? Why are you here? You know,
it's so funny.
It was so awesome.
That's great. Yeah, and when he mentioned, I looked for you at the battlefield, you were nowhere to be found. It also foreshadows Joffrey abandoning the battlefront at the Battle of Blackwater Bay as well, where Tyrion is in his armor also. So that's kind of funny. The kind of foreshadows that scene here as well, with Tyrion being in armor and talking about how Joffrey's nowhere to be seen on the battlefield, which is exactly what he is doing when he rallies the troops at the Battle of Blackwater. He's saying, that the king isn't here, but I am. Yeah. Couple episodes away, yeah.
Oh my gosh, Joffrey. I mean, the more you talk about this kid, the more you just hate him.
Yeah, totally. Whereas his siblings seems relatively normal, and Tyrion actually seems to really like Myrcella and Tommen. He shows up. He's like, Myrcella, you're looking so beautiful. Tommen, you're going to be bigger than the Hound one day and much better looking. And
he doesn't like me.
This one doesn't like me. Bronn's response there, I can't imagine why.
One of my favorite exchanges in the whole episode.
Yeah, it's great.
He doesn't like me. That one doesn't like me.
Yeah. And we learn more about Tyrion's character here in a number of ways too, as he does seem genuinely sorry for Sansa's loss of her father Ned, and has to point out to Joffrey that, you just lost your father too. You should be feeling some type of sympathy for her. So we learn that there is, as much as there is a tough exterior to Tyrion with the armor and how he's hardened and he's a Lannister true to form in some senses, that there is an under, there's the Hound with his teddy dog interior. He's the teddy imp inside. He's got a soul and whatnot. So he goes inside right as the council, the small council, is receiving a white raven from the Citadel that signals the change in seasons. And Baelish says that they have enough food for a 5-year winter, and if the winter lasts any longer, then there'll be a lot fewer peasants, which is pretty fucked up. Super hardcore. And remember that Daenerys just burned a whole wagon train of food and supplies that was supposed to go to King's Landing too, so she may have just sealed the deal for a whole bunch of peasants as well. We learn that Janos Slynt owes his title and land to Cersei. I thought it was funny how Tyrion arrives and he's whistling the Rains of Castamere. As he goes in.
What? I read that in one of the comments, and I missed that on first watch.
Oh, yeah, it took me a few watches before I noticed that too. And one of our astute listeners points out that once you know that song, it's pretty apparent how often you hear it on the show. It's sort of a consistent
very foreboding
theme. Yeah, very foreboding. So that was cool.
Funny that he would be whistling it in a jovial manner coming into the council. It's almost like he's like, I'm here to kill the party, dudes.
Yeah, this Lannister's coming to take over now. Yeah. So great.
Hello, I am the tiny buzzkill.
Yup. And he has a great line to Cersei when they're alone as well. He says, "You love your children. It's your one redeeming quality. That and your cheekbones." Which
your cheekbones.
Made me laugh. Every time I see him walk into this small council meeting, though, and say to Cersei, he says, "Sister, you're looking more ravishing than normal," or whatever, and he goes up and kisses her on the cheek. Every time I see that,
and it's like she got. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Every time I see that.
Every time I see that, it makes me think of the bad lip reading where he walks in and goes, "Face lick." Ooh, girl, you smell real good.
I always think of that it looks like she's being kissed by Grayscale. She's just kind of like, "Don't touch me. Don't touch me."
Oh, yeah. She does not dig Tyrion. pretty much.
No, and you know what? It has to be because he's just as smart as her, and it probably makes her crazy because she thinks she's the smartest, and she's not.
Right. Yeah, she's definitely not. And she's definitely getting a dose of that right now as Tyrion points out to her, we had 3 Starks to trade. You cut one's head off and then let another one escape.
Lost the other one.
And the look on his face in this scene numerous times where he's just smirking at Cersei is just beautiful. Dinklage just kills it here, and one of these moments is this must be hard for you to be the disappointing child.
Disappointing child, right?
And he's just grinning and just eating it up because he's usually the lowest of the low as far as Lannisters are concerned. Cersei's been the queen for all these years, while Tyrion's been setting up cisterns and drain systems for Casterly Rock, or
right.
whoring himself and drinking and reading. Now he's the hand of the king, and he's got more power than Cersei, and she's doing all this stupid stuff. And for once, he's being recognized for his intelligence by his father, which we talked about last episode or the episode before. So yeah, it's great to see Tyrion's triumphant arrival to King's Landing here, and him sticking it to all these losers. And even, it's so great, Joffrey doesn't even know why he's there. Joffrey's like, "Why are you here? What business are you talking about?" When he says, we've got business to attend to, or work to do. And he doesn't even answer him, just totally blows the king off. Doesn't even tell him what he's doing there or what work needs to be done, which is hilarious. So yeah, that's my number 5.
Yeah, it's funny. You know what? He doesn't ever seem like he's scared of Joffrey, whereas I think everybody else is scared of Joffrey. Or
oh yeah,
they tread very lightly around him, and Tyrion and to some extent even Tywin. In later seasons,
only 2. Yeah.
They both don't seem to back down from Joffrey. They see him as who he really is.
Yeah. And
because he doesn't do anything. He doesn't go to the small council meetings. He doesn't fight in the wars. He doesn't take part in strategy. He doesn't, he talks about, women and how, simple or stupid they are. And I mean, he all he wants to do is sit in his chair.
Oh yeah, and murder
kill
babies.
People. Yeah, that's literally it. And he just wants to prove that he's king. It's like his whole life is proving to people that he's king.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. And speaking of being scared of Joffrey, this is actually the first time we've seen Cersei scared, because when season 7 was airing and Jon Snow and the Eastwatch 7, or at least the ones that remain, some of them traveled south and brought the white to King's Landing and let it out of the box, and it ran at Cersei. And we got this look of horror and terror in Cersei's face. And I was saying, wow, this is the first time we've seen Cersei be scared. She looks terrified. But I was totally wrong, because I saw it this episode when she slaps Joffrey and he responds to her, "What you just did is punishable by death." And she has this look of
and she
terror.
Doesn't even she breaks eye contact with him. I mean, she looks down like she's some sort of a peasant. She won't even look back up at him.
Yeah, she won't even look at him, and she's just looking scared as fuck. And he says, "You will never do it again. Never.
You'll never do that again." Oh gosh,
never.
Yeah. I have the same exact thing written down. Cersei legitimately looks frightened of her son.
Yeah.
It's written down. I totally 100% agree.
Yeah, so this is the first and only other time we really see Cersei look scared at all in the entire series. I thought that was noteworthy.
Absolutely. But then it's I forget. I think it was after that scene that she looks at Tyrion and she's like, "Joffrey is king."
Right.
And she's looking at him going, "Joffrey is king. You are here to serve Joffrey. You are here to please Joffrey." And I think I have it all. Oh no, I'm wrong. No, she says Joffrey is king, blah, blah, blah. And then it's the second to last scene where Joffrey threatens to kill his own mother. Which, did you notice that
who hasn't threatened to kill their own mother, really?
This is dark, dude. Did you notice that they're wearing Lannister colors too?
Who?
Joffrey.
Oh, I did not notice, but yeah, now that you mention it, he's always wearing the Lannister crimson and gold. Yeah. Yeah, good catch. Just illustrating even further that he's a Lannister to the core.
To the dirty, rotten core.
The dirty, rotten core. The dirty, rotten bastard core.
There you go. We'll just keep adding to it as weeks go on. The dirty, rotten bastard core. Yeah. Okay, perfect. What's next week?
I have one of my friends, my best friend, Don, just had a son last week with his fiance. So congratulations, Don. But I was like, oh, how's the little bastard doing? Because he's technically a bastard, right?
Yeah, he is.
And he was like, hey, he's not a bastard. You've been watching too much Game of Thrones.
You're like, hey, man, bastard is as bastard does. I'm sorry. Congratulations on being a father. Congratulations. Awesome. I'm sorry to talk about your new son this way. It's horrible.
Hey, it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with being a bastard. So what was your number 4?
My number 4, I'm officially going out of order here. So, I wanted to talk about the wildlings for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
So it's small, but I thought it was very noteworthy to be a part of the top 5 because I had like an aha moment was, Craster's talking about, or, Old Bear, Lord Commander is asking Craster, he's like, hey, we went by like 6 villages on the way here and they're all abandoned. Like, what's going on? And Craster said, oh, well, they're gathering their armies. And so, with what at that point in the show, it sounds like they're gathering up their army to fight.
To fight us.
Right.
Yeah,
and really what they're doing is all they want to do is go south because they know what's coming. It's the whole idea of the why, like at this point in the rewatch, this is my 3rd rewatch of the series now. And so what I thought was very interesting is that in this rewatch with the wildlings is that I find myself trusting what they're doing and what they're saying. Osha earlier, who is a wildling, she tells Bran, no, the red comet's for the dragons. It means that there's dragons, buddy.
And where does she get that from? Like, we know all these interpretations, but there's nothing that seems too obvious about having a relation to dragons except for maybe fire being, having some red tints to it every once in a while. Or
right. Yeah, I don't know. But what I know is that since, we as a viewer know that that's true, right. we also know that she's a wildling. And for some reason, the wildlings seem to have like their pulse on everything. You know?
They have like ancient knowledge or something.
Yeah. I mean, winter's coming. Okay, well, we all hate each other, but we all want to keep breathing. So we're going to have to find a way to work together and get south of the wall so that we can get our own protection from what's coming, from the Night King.
Yeah, and then Osha telling Bran that Robb's marching his army the wrong direction.
Right. And she says he needs to be going north. And so it's just interesting to me, the more I see the wildlings, the more, before I just thought, oh gosh, these dumb wildlings, what are they doing? And now here we are a couple watches later, and you sit there and you're like, wow, how do you guys know all of this? And we should have listened to you way sooner than we really did.
Yeah, way sooner. Like even Osha knew more than Maester Lewin did about like White Walkers and the threat beyond the wall and everything like that.
Right.
Yeah, they know what's going on. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. So, I just thought that it was noteworthy to say they're not getting ready to fight. They're preparing to survive. They know that they're going to have to fight, the people of Westeros only because they understand that they are more concerned with more petty matters like, who's king or who's queen or, who gets to be the liege lord of what land.
Right.
And they're just like, hi, yeah, we just want to live. Can you help us do that? We'd love that, So yeah. It's an interesting progression and I thought it was noteworthy.
Nice. So are we calling that your number 4?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
cool. So we'll transition from your number 4 to my number 1, which will now be my number 4, which was just more about Craster's Keep.
We're staying north of the wall.
Yeah, might as well, lump it together. So I thought Dolorous Ed had, people always call him Dolorous Ed. So I just want to get this out there. It's Dolorous, Dolorous, which means like sadness, essentially, like of dolor. So it's not Dolores, like the woman's name, but Dolorous Ed. He's funny, man. They come upon Craster's Keep and he's like, I was born in a place like this. Later, I fell on hard times, which obviously it's not necessarily the nicest, most upkept place, Craster's Keep. So he's always got great little 1 or 2 liners like this throughout the series. He's a consistent source of comedy on the show.
I do like him. I agree.
The books.
I like that whole little band of brothers.
Oh yeah, Pip and Gran and Dolorous Ed and Sam.
That's a girl. Haven't seen a girl in like 6 months.
Yeah.
So does that mean that they've been traveling for 6 months, or does that mean it's been 6 months since he first got to Castle Black?
That's what I would take it to mean, that since 6 months since he's gotten to Castle Black.
Because I know that there's women in like the villages or whatever that they all go to secretly visit. So
right,
I
Mole's
didn't know
Town and everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think that I think they've been pretty much at Castle Black during the training and stuff like that. I don't really feel like they've left other than John's midnight ride. So I think it's probably since he's been to Castle Black.
Okay.
So we also learn very creepily that Craster marries his daughters, who give him more daughters, and then he marries them, and they give him more daughters, and just keeps going and going forever, which is super gross.
Did you notice also that John was the only one that seemed to say, what about the boys?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
The rest
that was
of them
my next...
looked like, what? What are you talking about? Like, it had never dawned on them to ask about, oh, well, have you ever had a boy?
Yeah, obviously it's not just girls that are being born.
There's like 100 women here. You're telling me you're shooting women every single time?
What happens to the boys? So, yeah, it's great. John is just like light years ahead of everybody, and interestingly, we do
all that
learn,
brooding.
Yeah, all that moping and brooding and looking in the mirror.
He's pretty. He's so pretty.
Just as Craster says, he's prettier than half of my daughters.
He's prettier than all of the daughters. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. We do learn that Mormont knows about what happens with the boys in the future as well. He admits to John that he does know after John tells him what he witnesses with the White Walker in a coming episode. We get another reappearance of the Southerners joke, where somebody says, we're not Southerners, and somebody else says, you're from south of the wall, you're Southerners to us. Right? So this time it's Jon Snow, who's a bastard Southerner to Craster. Craster is so funny, too. What's your name, boy? Jon Snow. Listen to me, bastard. You're all from south of the wall.
See, again, the wildlings, man, they know everything.
Yeah.
Even stuff that has nothing to do with them. It's, it's like Europeans and Americans. I swear, Americans are so stupid.
Yeah, and Europeans know
They
everything.
sit there, they're like, huh, what are you talking about? And they're like, I know everything about you.
Yeah, totally. And I like how, I like the game that they sort of have here, which Mormont seems to be prepared for, which he wants answers and Craster wants stuff, right? So first he demands wine for some answers, and he asks why all the wildlings are leaving, and Mormont's like, grab the Dornish Red. So they get the Dornish Red for Craster, who immediately, after just having heard the order being given, doesn't wait to get the wine. He opens up, says they went north to join up with Mance Rayder. He next demands the axe on the guy next to Mormont for in exchange for telling everybody that that they're gathering an army, which we talked about a little bit, and you astutely pointed out as well. Sort of creates the impression that they're creating an army to fight their way into the south, to fight their way through the Night's Watch and through any forces to basically to get into the gift or wherever they want to go in the southern kingdoms, which we know is not the case. but it's creating a tension with the Night's Watch that doesn't necessarily need to be there. It's just further escalating the thousands of years of old tension between these two groups of people, based on a misunderstanding, which is pretty...
Well, even when they start explaining it, people still don't want to hear it.
Right, yeah, they won't buy it at all. Except for Stannis, who ends up going north. It's very interesting. It's just, this is all very well written. So we have our little foreboding question of what happens to the boys. We learn about the wives and the daughters, and Gilly is there and everything. And there's a hilarious interaction between Mormont and Craster, where Craster is... they're two old guys who have known each other for a long time sitting there, and Craster's looking at Mormont like, "Oh, am I making you jealous? Seeing me with all my wives to warm my bed while you're just at the wall with your boys? You chose the path. We chose our different paths, right? But you chose the one that has nothing but boys on it." Which is pretty funny.
Yeah, and gross.
Yeah. And he's not digging Jon Snow, and he's like, "Any man who lays a hand on one of my wives loses a hand, especially you, bastard," and Mormont slams Jon Snow against that pole outside, and is, obviously not happy with his conduct, the way he's conducting himself inside the keep there. And he says, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Jon Snow." And he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "You're Stewart."
Steward. So, yeah, I had an interesting thought on that, was that, Jon has such this chip on his shoulder, I mean, in the first couple of seasons, it's just so hard for him to bury it. He just walks around because he's somebody that's been on the outside for so long, and he's somebody that was never really a part of the Stark family, and they never let him forget that he wasn't a real Stark.
But he feels like he deserves it, like that.
He feels like he deserves
level.
A place, I think. A place. And I don't think he's had one. And I think as a result, it's just been this huge... just this wall that he puts up, right?
Yeah.
And he's so angry, and he pouts and he broods, and we all talk about it and laugh about it. And this is kind of the beginning here of Jon becoming a part of something, of him finding his place and finding his stride. And first he needs to be told, if you want to lead, you have to learn how to follow, because he's never been taught to follow. He's just been taught to be quiet, to stand to the side, to not make too much of himself. And now they're saying, if you want to be a part of this, you need to learn how to first be a part of it so that you can lead it again, and it's so fun to go back and see the beginning of this character that we know now, as this warrior. I mean, arguably the best warrior in the entire known universe of A Song of Ice and Fire, with what he's been through, with his
morality combined with his, with his fighting style, like his capability, his physical capability, with his moral philosophy, essentially.
And he's getting wiser, and it's because of these people that he's come across that have taught him, right? One of them, most notably, being Jorah Mormont. Right. Jeor Mormont. Jeor, whatever.
Either way is fine, yeah.
But he's the biggest. I would even say that he's a bigger influence than Ned Stark ever was, because Mormont's the one that taught him how to lead. Right. Mormont's the one that taught him how to be a man.
He taught him how to be him, how to come into his own, really.
Right, yeah. Right.
Ned held him back for all this time, and not intentionally, but Mormont's
to keep him alive.
It's like
Ned Stark wanted to keep him alive.
Yeah, Ned was maintaining him in a vegetative state. And now Mormont is changed the light cycle so that he can flower. Right.
Well, because Mormont doesn't know who he is.
Right.
So he's not treating him like he's made of glass, because he doesn't know. There's a jet going over my house, so if you hear that, I apologize.
That's pretty cool. And also, I think the other important part that you brought up is that he's needs to be a part of something, and I think that's important. He needs to recognize that his ego is playing too much into it right now. He needs to be integrated as a part of a larger whole. So when Mormont's asking him, "Who are you?" and he's like, "Jon Snow," and he's like, "Wrong fucking answer, dude.
Right.
You are just a man of the Night's Watch at this point. Like, leave your ego out of this and just be a cog for now, you know?"
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's fun. It's fun to see. It's fun to watch Jon grow.
Yeah, and this is the first time, too, that Mormont has seemed to acknowledge Sam's speculation of the plot to essentially train Jon to be a leader. So he's like, "You want to lead one day?" You know, and Jon's like, "Oh, shit," you know, like kind of just nods, like he's surprised that Mormont was that upfront about it, potentially. And yeah, just it's cool to see Jon realizing more and more the position that he's in and trying to grow and learn to be more responsible and play the role, which is pretty, you know, it's awesome, like you're saying.
I agree.
So that's pretty much my number 4. How about your number 3?
I would probably say because I like I said, I'm like totally out of order here at this point because we have a lot of the same, but you know, I guess one of them was following the red comet. You know, this is the first time that we see the comet. And what I found was kind of cool was for most of the episode, that's how we panned in and out of the scenes, right? They'd be done with Winterfell and they'd go up.
Yeah, the great transitions.
And so my husband and I were watching it, and I said, "I just love how they go." You know, we were watching the Daenerys scene. You know, I was like, "I love how they just go up." You know, from the red waist, and then all of a sudden you're down, and he goes in the white waist, and I'm like, "Yeah, we go from the red waist to the white waist." That's totally true.
That's beautiful.
I told him that I wanted to use it and that I would give him a shout out. So that was me giving him a shout out.
Go, Dave! I like that one. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. So
and we totally missed last episode, the season 1 finale. Doesn't Dany notice the comet above Drogo's pyre? They had to have shown that on the show, right? It's a big thing in the books. She says she couldn't have asked for a stronger omen. The red comet blazed through the sky as she lit the pyre. I've you know, rewatching these episodes, half the time I'm looking down as I'm typing notes, essentially. So I miss certain little things, and I feel like I may have missed them showing us a shot of the comet in the sky. Or was this the first time we saw the comet?
I think this was the first time that we saw the comet. She was looking up while she had Drogon on her shoulder, trying to give them meat. And I think she saw the comet then. Damn,
that's too bad, because that would have been a really powerful moment if the comet showed up in the sky right before the pyre.
Especially, I mean, leaving for the year, being like, what was that?
Yeah, right. That and the dragon simultaneously. Like, what the hell just happened?
There was a lot that happened in that last scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so hang on, let me go to my notes, because there was, so with this comet, there's, there's a lot that kind of comes with it. And one of them is what Melisandre was talking about with Lightbringer and, her own prophecy for the prince that was promised. And so I looked it up to get the exact quote on Westeros.org, where they have a lot of, they're like, I don't know if you've ever been on that site, but for anybody that hasn't been on that site, it is just canon. There's no speculation. There's no commentary. It is only canon for the books and for the show. And they're really kind of like upfront about that. So they're like, we're only going to talk about what is actually there. If you want to go to speculation.
Didn't the creators of that website also help co-write the World of Ice and Fire book as well?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But in this one, they talk about Lightbringer. It says, in ancient books of Asai, it is written that there will come a day after a long summer when the stars bleed and the cold breath of darkness falls heavy on the world. In this dread hour, a warrior shall draw from the fire a burning sword, and that sword shall be Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes, and he who clasps it, it shall be Azor Ahai come again, and the darkness shall flee before him. So, there's all this speculation about who is Azor Ahai, what is Lightbringer? Is it, is it a certain sword? Is it any sword? Is it a sword at all?
Right. Is it dragons?
Is it dragon steel? Is it dragon glass?
Right.
If that's the case, then, there's a lot of people with Valyrian steel swords, one of them being Jon Snow, who is also mining dragon glass right now, so... it's funny because, you see this red comet and you hear, okay, it means dragons. Yes, that's very obvious. But then you get it with this, this Lightbringer prophecy. You see that Jon is making his ascent into the ranks of the Night Watch by being groomed by the Lord Commander. And then all these pieces they're not even coming to the board yet. It's like they're still being chiseled. And so all you're left, if you're a first time watcher, is you have all these random pieces that you don't know how they go together. And it's so fun to watch them all come together. And then you see this prophecy and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally understand how they're supposed to fit. And I'm going off on a tangent now.
No, it's awesome.
But so what's interesting is that I just don't think that that Lightbringer sword, that it's a fiery sword. I can't believe it because it looks like it's too easy to light a sword on fire. I mean, Beric Dondarrion does it just to do it,
Right.
He did it when he fought the Hound.
Did it? He was known for doing it in melees at tournaments. The Red Priest with the flaming sword, that was like his thing. Right.
And he did it at the Magnificent Seven, the Eastwatch 7.
Right. Yep.
And then, Stannis pulls the sword out, and if it's supposed to be this, huge moment, he just tosses it in the sand.
Right. And Melisandre knows that this is bullshit at this point. He pulls the sword out, sticks it in the sand, everybody takes a knee, and she sort of has her head half bowed, and there's a moment where her eyes flick up, and she starts scanning the crowd, and she's sort of like sketchily looking at everybody to see how they're reacting and to see if they're like playing into it. And I was like, oh, she's full of it here. She's just watching everybody to make sure that they're falling for her game.
Yeah, which, they are. So.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So anyways, the rest of this little blurb, it says, the bleeding star refers to the comet. The cold breath of darkness is most likely to the others in the approaching winter. The prophecy speaks of the return of Azor Ahai to once again drive back the others. So I'd say that that's all true, and that's all happening right now in the story. So
yeah, definitely.
The red comet is the big marker of that. But that was my number 2, actually. So.
Oh, cool. I also like the way that the red comet was introduced through the eyes of Summer, right? Isn't that the first shot we saw of it?
Yes.
Was through the eyes of Summer. So that was cool. And then he kind of trots over and looks down into his reflection in the weirwood pond.
To make sure it's him.
Yeah, yeah. And so then we know for sure that we're seeing through the eyes of the wolf, which is that was awesome. That was our first wolf dream. No, it wasn't, because he was having wolf dreams when he woke up last year. But either way, it was cool. I like those wolf dreams.
Those were the hardest chapters for me to get through, for being honest.
Sure. Yeah, always want to be honest. People often, have certain chapters. They'll be like, I skip Cersei chapters, or I skip
Dorne
chapter or whatever. Yeah, I can't skip anything, man. Like I'm always paying attention in chapters for hints about other chapters, basically.
Oh, I never skip the chapters. It just
they're the hardest. Yeah, I know.
It was just a slog. Yeah.
I love all the characters and like everything, all like stuff. I must just be a unique case where none of it bores me.
Hey, that's it. That's all right. Yeah, it's the only thing that I really couldn't get through when it came to Bran and warging, and I never saw a point to it.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And I guess I just was like, okay, that's enough. Thank you. I don't need 50 pages on this.
Well, here's a point. The Night King has a dragon right now, and we're going to need Bran to warg into
very
it.
nicely into. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to need Bran to warg into that shit to to save us all, potentially.
Well, like I said, right? It's all the puzzle pieces finally coming together.
Yeah, totally.
You're not sure what to do with the puzzle pieces in the beginning. You're like, yeah, I've got this really weirdly shaped puzzle piece, and it doesn't go to any part of this puzzle. And
for
I
all
want
we
to throw
know,
it in the trash.
Yeah, for all we know, the dragon's just going to burn that puzzle piece, and it's never even going to happen.
Right.
That dragon, though, that's like the dragon that's on speed and meth and crack all combined at once. The thing is crazy. So is that it for your number 2?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. My number 2 is different Lannisters being confronted about incest and their reactions. So yeah. This is the episode where, Stannis writes the incest letter and reveals to everybody that based on Ned's information, oh my God, like Ned got killed, and he was so close to Cersei was so close and Joffrey to completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Covering up this information.
Exposer.
Yeah, they thought with the death of Ned, essentially, that this information would not get out. But
yeah.
But Ned had sent that raven to Stannis, right? So everybody is going to find out at least what Ned and Stannis are saying, that Joffrey is a bastard. But it's so funny because it's just they came so close to completely suppressing that information, and just that one little raven is throwing their game into disarray, essentially. Mm-hmm. This rebellion would have never taken place if Stannis didn't have reason to believe that Joffrey was a bastard, essentially. And all these other people. At least it wouldn't have played out the way that it did. But so their people's reactions. We got Jaime, who's still being held prisoner at Robb's host, and starts off with a cool shot of like a watchtower as it sort of pans over his army encampment, and you can see the scale of it. It's pretty huge. I've never really paid attention to it much before, but it's pretty impressive and vast. And so Robb and Jaime are talking, and Robb got Stannis' letter. He's learned of the bastard accusations, and he accuses Jaime of pushing Bran from the window after Bran caught him with Cersei. And Jaime has like kind of a funny reaction. He was so upfront with Kat about having pushed Bran, but he will not admit to the incest. He will not. So he's like, do you have proof, or do you want to just gossip like a bunch of fishwives? Which was a pretty funny line. And so Jaime's reaction to this is just being totally quiet, not playing into it at all, not even acknowledging it, essentially, and changing the topic, calling Robb a boy, and doing his best just to not feed into it. So Robb, he's like, oh, sorry, did I insult you, Robb, calling you a boy? And he's like, you insult yourself. You've just been defeated by a boy, captured by a boy. Perhaps you'll be killed by a boy. And as he's saying this, Grey Wind is creeping around the edge of the cage, and Jaime is kind of.
I love that direwolf.
Yeah, the watcher doesn't know exactly what's happening yet. They just see Jaime kind of flick his head over and looking concerned, and then Grey Wind prowls in right under Robb's hand, and he's just poised at his side, waiting for command. And this scene is intense for a number of reasons. But one other thing that it suggests to me is that much as Bran has his visions and his dreams and his warging with Summer, I feel like Robb has some sort of mental connection with Grey Wind here, as the wolf seems so under his control at this point. He just gives him a little squeeze and lets go with his hand, and Grey Wind goes right up to Jaime's face and snarls in his face and intimidates him, and doesn't kill him, right? So it's like Robb is so confident that Grey Wind understands what he wants and won't betray him, that he lets him in here with this valuable prisoner. Whereas, this is Jaime Lannister as a captive is it's like the most valuable prisoner you could possibly have in this situation. He's
absolutely
worth more than Joffrey as a prisoner. You know what I mean? He's he's Tywin's dreams, the richest guy, most powerful guy in the Seven Kingdoms, and Jaime is his pride, essentially. He's the future of Tywin's dynasty. Couldn't think of a more valuable hostage. And Robb lets this wolf in here with him, this fucking dire wolf that could just rip his head off. So obviously Robb is really confident in his connection with Grey Wind, which says a lot, I feel like, especially when we learn how valuable the Stark kids are, when Tyrion is putting Cersei down about having lost a Stark kid and having killed Ned when they were such valuable hostages. So it just goes to show you how really valuable Jaime is. But
it shows you what one boy to the other boy, one boy king versus another boy king, and what they do with their hostages and their maturity levels. Great parallel.
Yeah, good that you pointed that out. I hadn't even thought about it that way. And that's awesome. And Joffrey just disposes of his valuable hostages. When Robb will let a wolf in with him, but he knows the wolf isn't going to kill him. So even faced with imminent death, Jaime will not confess the incest. Not there's a reason to, really, but it's just interesting, his reaction there, just dead silent, nothing. Mm-hmm. And then Cersei is confronted by Baelish about it. She finds him in the, right next to that courtyard where she ends up putting the map in season 7.
Oh, what a scene.
Right?
What a scene.
Love this.
The best scene of the episode.
Yeah, she notices his mockingbird sigil, and she's like, "Oh, you picked your own sigil, didn't you?" And he's like, "I did. Thank you for noticing." Some
they
people
just start talking in riddles to each other.
Yeah, it's
so
beautiful,
cool.
Beautiful. And she mentions his past with history with Lysa and Catelyn and everything, and how she knows about who he is and his motivations in an attempt to make sort of a power play against him. And then he brings up the incest and mentions how, sometimes feelings can occur with brothers and sisters too, and in prominent families if the word can get out. It's bad. And prominent families often forget one simple truth, that, like you said, knowledge is power. And she responds, "Seize him!" Boom! They grab him, cut his throat. Knife is instantly at his throat. Wait!
Change my mind. Back up 3 paces.
Let him
turn
go.
around. Close your eyes.
Yeah, it's so amazing.
What's interesting, though, is don't you think she showed her hand? I mean, she basically said she hit a nerve, Littlefinger hit a nerve with her,
That's true. But at the same time, he showed his hand. That was his trump card. She could have had him killed right at that moment.
Yeah. How many people have tried to kill Littlefinger over 7 seasons? I mean, they've choked him. They've tried to kill him.
Right.
Seize him.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But how about this? Cersei, a woman, she's want to tell her guards, cut his throat, right? So that totally foreshadows Littlefinger's throat being cut, actually, 6 seasons later, or 5 seasons later, at the command of a woman.
I love it.
Right? So how funny is that?
Yeah. At the command of Sansa, at that, who,
who
was kind of groomed by Cersei.
Yeah, totally groomed by Cersei. Such a close connection with Cersei. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So 2 totally parallel scenes there, which is, I put that in my notes that it totally foreshadows his actual death in this scene. But we didn't mention that she, sees him, cut his throat, stop, wait, I've changed my mind, let him go, take 3 steps back, turn around, close your eyes. Power is power.
Ugh, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
So good. And he's just like, oh,
he
man.
probably had to go and change his pants after that.
Yeah, hopefully he was wearing his brown pants. The people are always grabbing him by the throat. His throat is often the target.
Because of the words that come out of his throat.
Yeah, that's so true. Yes, that's awesome. Ned grabbed him by the throat. Jon grabbed him by the throat. Cersei told people to cut his throat. Sansa had Arya cut his throat. Oh, man.
Awesome.
It's great.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
He's the worst.
He's the worst and the best.
Yeah.
I love
and then,
him.
and then Joffrey.
Yeah, then
Joffrey's-
Joffrey is next confronted about the bastardhood. He tells his mom he's remodeling the throne room to fit the style of a conqueror, because he, feels like
Because
he's
he's such a conqueror.
She tells him that he's heard a disgusting lie about Uncle Jamie and you, Mommy. And she denies it, obviously, saying that Stannis is just trying to weaken his claim to the throne. He's like, my claim to the throne.
It's not a claim.
Yeah.
I am king. I am king. I'm the king.
So he continues to ask, Father had other children besides me and Tommen and Myrcella? And she's like, what are you asking? And this line seems to have slipped by me in all my watchings of this show. Like, so many times, it's like the first time I ever really heard him ask this. Asking about the bastards, which he then orders to be executed, and we get being killed in the same episode. So that stuck out to me, that obviously it's Joffrey who has arranged for this.
Well, he must know. He must know that it's the truth.
Yeah, well, at least, and if it's not the truth, that at worst case that somebody could still claim it's the truth and try to elevate a bastard.
Right.
So he's eliminating his competition, and Tyrion ends up accusing Cersei.
Yeah,
of
but he
having
doesn't
done it.
kill Myrcella and Tommen.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So he must know that he's not a Baratheon.
Yeah. I wonder. He's blonde as hell, right? And all those other bastards had black hair, I noticed.
He's got a touch of the gray.
Yeah, it's got a touch. He's slightly touched.
Oh my gosh, he's insanity reborn. He's just crazy.
Yeah. So Cersei asks, what are you asking? And he's like, I'm asking if he fucked other women when he got tired of you.
When he got tired of you.
Yeah, he probably has bastards running all around this. Boom, she slaps the fuck out of him. Like Beavis and
Such an
Butthead.
asshole.
Don't make me kick your ass, Beavis. And
I know.
and
that's when Cersei's kind of put in her place by her own son.
Yep, and that's the moment of terror we talked about. And so basically, turns out that Joffrey's reaction to having learned about the incest and bastardhood potential, his reaction is to order the murder of all the other bastards. So we get Raz giving the moaning lessons now in Baelish's stead in the whorehouse, and the gold cloaks rush in and find the whore who the poor lovely whore that Ned had found and was talking with about the baby, who's like, Robert was always so good to me, and tell him that she's doing so well. I haven't been with anybody else, and all that, and then Janis Slynt comes in and orders her child to be stabbed.
I hate
rough. Janis Slynt. And I fucking hate Joffrey. They're, inexcusable.
The whole last 5 minutes of this episode, I watched in a pillow. I couldn't. Yeah. I knew what was happening. There's some stuff that I just can't see again, and that's one of them. Yeah,
I don't blame you. My notes ended with fucking Joffrey, I think, at that part.
What did I write? Probably nothing, because I was mad.
Yeah,
I did not watch again. Listening was enough. I just hate Janos Slynt. Seriously, it's word for word.
I did a frowning emoji with the angry eyebrows using the greater than symbol.
Yeah, the angry ones.
Yeah. So they continue to search the city and murder a bunch of bastards, and they all have jet black hair, just like Gendry. And then it's
until
revealed,
you see Gendry and Arya.
Yep. The blacksmith is being interrogated, and it's revealed that he has shipped Gendry up to the north with the Night's Watch, and that's where we end, is panning out with an ominous shot of the Night's Watch heading north with Gendry and Arya and the bull helm, which is pretty awesome helm. I'm wondering.
Yeah, well, he's very good with steel.
Yeah, he can swing a hammer, as he told Hot Pie last episode. For that.
Yeah.
When I swing this hammer, it makes the anvil sing.
It's one of the things I always wish that they kept from the books was when Hot Pie was killing someone, he's like, Hot Pie, Hot Pie, Hot Pie. Like, he just kept repeating Hot Pie as he stabbed people or killed them.
That's so. Oh, like
I just thought it was
Right, like sort of like when they're in a battle, like you're talking about the battle at that farm place when Arya,
like, hot pie.
Arya frees Jack and Hagar and Biter and Rorg, right? Yeah, because it's like a Westerosi thing. Is like when you're charging into battle, you shout who you're representing, right? So it's like Winterfell,
representing hot pie.
Yeah. Arya's like Winterfell, and he's like hot pie,
hot pie. Yeah,
total Hodor moment.
So funny. Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, he is. He's like an intelligent Hodor.
Yeah, I love hot pie, man.
Yeah,
it's so funny. So yeah, that pretty much sums up my number 2. Is just the reactions of the different Lannisters to learning of the bastardhood. Jaime keeps his mouth shut. Cersei freaks out and exerts power over her accuser, and Joffrey orders the assassination of any potential bastards.
We must have the same one left over.
No, definitely not this time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can go ahead with your number 1.
I'm like super intrigued by yours, but yeah, mine was Rob's peace demands.
Oh, yes. This is definitely very important.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite parts of this whole exchange, during this scene is when he says, "I don't need a servant to do my beheading for me."
Yes.
It's just
Daddy taught him better than that.
But it's such an ending to an already very epic speech by him, right? He's sat there and he goes, "I want you to." He's laying out his demands as, we want to be a free North and we don't want to be, subject to anybody in King's Landing. And, you're going to bring back the bones of my father, the bones of his people. You're going to give me my sisters. You're going to, he's just like laying it all out. And then he's like, "Oh, and by the way, Cersei and Joffrey, you guys are going to leave King's Landing and you're going to admit that you guys are all a bunch of fakes." and like the only thing that somebody can say during that point is, "The king in the north." like they can't even handle what they're hearing.
Yeah,
like they're
just
expelling words at this point. And then he said, and then he lays it out. I don't need anybody to do my beheading for me.
Yeah, you'll relinquish your claim to the domain of the North.
Oh man. Such a great speech,
That moment, my jaw just drops. Like, what?
Because he's a man now. He's not the boy king. And, he's won 3 victories and he's been there for his people. And he's, taking back what's his. And he's kicking ass and taking names.
3 victories is better than 3 defeats, as he tells Jaime, right? 3 victories doesn't make you a conqueror.
He's overconfident in all the wrong ways, but I still love it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about the casting here for King Rob, Richard Madden?
Oh, I think he was fantastic.
Nice. Did you ever see him play what is it, Prince Charming or whatever? And
No, I never saw the Cinderella movie. I need to see it though. My daughter keeps asking me if we're gonna see it, and the only reason why I really want to see it is because I want to see Richard Madden in it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But a couple of questions always come to mind when it comes to Rob, because as wonderful as everything that he does is, he's doing little things wrong. If he wanted to combine armies, I feel like he should have gone to Stannis, because Rob's just like, "Look,
right,
man,
exactly.
Look, you do what you do and I'll do what I do and we'll be fine. But let's at least combine what we're doing, because he is the legitimate king if he really believes that, right?" Yeah. And why go to Renly? Renly he's a phony. He's a fake. Everybody knows it. Like, he's playing king.
The only reason I can imagine that he would go to Renly here instead of Stannis is just that he knows that Stannis will never relinquish the North. He's thinking that, well, Renly might be willing to, in exchange for having the North back his claim to the throne, he may be willing to, in exchange for that, give us the North, as long as he ends up on the throne himself. So that's my only guess as to why he did that. But I think that Ned would have not been happy about this, about choosing Renly like that. for sure.
Yeah, that was a big mistake. And sending his mom when his mom just wanted to go back to Winterfell, where, his home is being led by like a 6-year-old right now.
Yeah. Yeah. 6-year-old and an old man.
Right. And then he's like, and then Theon's like, my father will listen to me. And Rob's like, yeah, sure. That sounds like a great idea. Go over there.
That's another.
Like, none of this is good.
That's another great point, is that his whole undoing is here with Theon, essentially. I think that there's something in the books where Ned had, one of the last things he had done when he sent Catelyn away from King's Landing was telling her to keep the Greyjoy boy close, and a couple other things, and she never relayed that message to Rob. And so, yeah, that I don't think that was included in the show, but I remember there being something about that.
Yeah, it was just, the whole thing, I don't know. It's just, he's so epic at being a leader, and that he will do what needs to be done.
Slickly,
but he's
too.
She's putting a lot of trust into the wrong people. Theon being number one.
Yeah, Walder Frey.
Right. Yeah, totally. And then, at the very end, not at the very end of Rob, but one of the lines that Catelyn says to Rob before she leaves is, "We will all be together again soon, I promise." And it's just so sad because they're both now together, but they're not with us, right? So she was saying the truth, but it's a little sad.
Yeah.
But to go back to just his peace demands, I just love the strength and the growth in Rob so quickly. He took on being
quicker than John.
Well, yeah. John had some real good thinking to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was that's my last one. My number one.
Nice. That was a good one.
Now
right.
I want to hear yours.
Okay. This is from way out of left field.
Yay!
My number one is religious and occult symbolism in this episode.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't have had the same one. You're right.
I just noticed a few things which I thought were pretty cool. We have Dany leading the Dothraki through the Red Waste, which reminded me of Moses leading the Jews through the desert. Talk about how their biggest enemy at this point was starvation, and how can she promised that she'd make their enemies die screaming, but how can you make starvation scream? Which reminded me again of Moses, who had this manna device that he used to feed the Jews, I guess, in this voyage.
Yep, he did.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting. They're following the comet in the sky, which made me think of the wise men following the star. There's a lot of light and dark as well, which is like symbolizes duality and in the occult and stuff like that. So they're in the desert surrounded by sunlight, and then it goes next to
God and Satan is light and dark as well.
Right, yeah. And so we have the light side of that equation with Daenerys representing the Messiah and whatnot, and then it transitions to the dark side with Melisandre, who, like Lucifer, is rebelling against the reigning god. We have her talking about a sword called Lightbringer, which Lucifer literally translates as Lightbringer. So I thought that was interesting. I
never knew that.
Yeah, Lucifer means bringer of light. So
interesting.
Technically,
that's interesting.
The Statue of Liberty is a Lucifer. It's yeah. So there's that. We had the line which came from Osha talking to Bran, where she says, "Stars don't fall for men. Red comet means one thing, boy: dragons."
Dragons.
And Lucifer was referred to as a falling star as well. And if the falling star means dragons, then that makes sense as well, because Lucifer is often related to the serpent in the Garden of Eden, providing sacred knowledge. So the dragons
The
are the
temptation.
serpents. So we got the fallen star being associated with dragons, and serpents or reptiles. There's just a lot of religious symbolism in this episode, which I noticed this time around, which I thought was pretty fun. And it's pretty cool. How about you got anything else to play off that now that we're talking about it?
No, I do like, I like where you're going with it. And there's probably a lot of intention from George R.R. Martin.
Oh, absolutely.
With doing that, which in our house, we call him Grimm.
Oh, Graham.
Grrm.
Right. I've heard people call him
Kind of sounds like Grimm.
Yeah, Grimm's.
We call him Grimm in this house.
Nice.
Stupid Grimm.
Oh, so here's an interesting question. So if Melisandre represents Lucifer and like the order of like Luciferianism or whatever, then if Jon is revived by R'hllor, could that signify some sort of dark future for Jon?
No.
Or maybe they consider Lucifer to be the good guy, which, the Luciferians would sympathize with that. I don't know.
I think that anything is, I think that that's a really good question. I was saying no, just because I refuse to believe that Jon is anything other than 100% good.
Right.
But considering the universe and the show that we are talking about, anything is possible.
I would love to see Jon go full dark side.
No,
That'd
stop.
Be amazing. Imagine him just like as a robot for the Night King. With ice growing off of his face.
Do you understand
and
the
stuff?
hearts that would break all over this world?
Yeah, but do you understand the metal songs that would be written as a consequence? It'd be so awesome. I mean, it'd be horrifying.
You and I are looking at this from two completely different points of view.
Yeah.
The whole Venus and Mars thing. Right?
That's what makes it good, though. Light and dark, just like we were talking about.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you know what? I mean, you bring up very, very interesting questions that, in all honesty, I would love to just sit and marinate on instead of just answering it off the cuff, to tell you the truth.
Sure.
We can circle back to it.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Since
we'll
I'm
talk
here
about
now,
it more in
we
the
can
future.
circle back to it.
I honestly, I watched the episode an hour before recording and picked up on a few things, so I didn't really have time to do much research and back the parallels or metaphors here by further research. But I did pick up on at least enough that I thought it was worth mentioning, and the religious implications could have character implications to the people involved, like Dany being associated with the Messiah, Melisandre being associated with the fallen angels and whatnot. So we'll just have to see how those extrapolate in the end game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that think that Jon is the Messiah in this story as well.
Right, and that's the interesting thing too, is that there's like a divide
because he was brought by darkness.
Yeah,
although the Lord of Light is R'hllor, and it could be argued that R'hllor is actually the one that is making all of the good things happen, and that is the driving force of that. Even though it looks like it's in darkness,
right.
It's the one thing that's bringing out the light. It's the one thing that's doing anything.
And that's what makes it so interesting too, is because it sort of parallels the real life interpretations of the character of Lucifer. Like, there's some people who consider Lucifer like a horrible fallen angel who betrayed the god of creation, and they equate him with Satan, essentially. And then there's other factions of people who believe that Lucifer is the champion, that God was the oppressor, enslaving humanity and keeping them intelligent or without information, and that Lucifer freed them by giving them the knowledge, the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and sparking their minds. So there's like a total debate on what's good, what's evil, and it sort of translates into the way that the symbology is presented on the TV show, and there's an honest debate of the same type of thing. Like, is R'hllor good? Is he bad? He burns like little children and stuff, his followers do, but he revived Jon Snow. You know what I mean? So
yeah, well, you can
crazy.
say the same thing for God too. I mean, people do a lot of heinous things in the name of in the name of God, but they also do a lot of really great things in the name of God. Right. So you don't really know where you're coming with that, because God is very angry and very vengeful, and he can be oppressive, but he also pushes you to learn and trust. And, you can make arguments really for both sides, light and dark. So it will be interesting to see where the pieces fall eventually.
And then it's hard to blame followers for doing things in God's name, you could say, because God gave them free will. So, it's not God doing it.
Stannis didn't have to burn his daughter. He did not have to do that. Yeah. But he did it.
And Abraham didn't have to cut his son in half. Parallel sort of thing right there, right? But yeah, so I just thought that was cool. Lots of religious parallels and symbology in this episode and series as a whole. So we'll have to delve more into that in the future.
Yeah, that's a conversation that can go on forever, I think.
Yeah, and it can be expanded in a number of different directions with the Norse mythology that's overlaid over the whole series, or
we can have a
special
section.
Yeah.
We're going to have a special section, Light and Dark section, by Kristen and Duncan.
Yeah. We can add that for sure.
I will be playing Light. Duncan will be playing
Darkness. And, there's so much stuff overlaid. We got, what's his face? Tyrion shares remarkable similarities to a Chinese twisted monkey demon god called Sun Wukong. We've got Jon Snow paralleling Mithra. We've got Blood Raven paralleling Loki. There's so many things like this all throughout the series that could be analyzed. I don't think that people are going to stop analyzing this series for hundreds of years before it's all even figured out.
No, I look at Lord of the Rings. I mean, the same thing happens with them, with that universe. So.
Yeah, it's called writing in like the grand tradition. I call it is when you or they call it is when you like overlay your writings with encrypted history and mythology and stuff like that. That's all built into it. It's pretty cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So that wraps up my number one. Any other notes here or anything you want to talk about?
Oh, you know what? I think that we've really covered it all. Is this the first time that we hear about Mance?
I think I believe it is. Yeah.
Okay, that was my only question mark that I had on here. I couldn't remember if we had heard about him in the first season. I didn't think so, but yeah. Other than that, we talked about Theon. Yeah, lots of good little lines in this. Loyal service means telling hard truths.
Yep.
You want to lead one day, learn to follow. Power is power. Knowledge is power. So everything is, we will soon all be together again. I promise. Oh,
yeah.
So I did want to say that if anybody did want to read these chapters, I don't know if anybody has any interest in the book, but I always look at what chapters they go over. And for this episode in Clash of Kings, it's the prologue, chapter 2, 3, 4, 7, 10, 12, 23, and 33.
Awesome. Thanks for doing that. That's a really good idea. Yeah. And yeah, I definitely remember the prologue in the books of book 2 is when
the death scene of the Maester.
Yeah, when Crescent tries to poison Melisandre. That always sticks out to me as two new characters that you're experiencing in that prologue. It's really intense.
Well, and it's so different from what you had just read. And you're reading this going, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's a good chapter. I highly recommend reading the prologue of Clash of Kings.
All right. So we'll take a little break, and there's more to come. Stay with us. And we're back with news about Game of Thrones. Our first article comes from Time, An Iranian man is charged with hacking HBO and stealing Game of Thrones episodes. U.S. prosecutors have charged an Iranian national with hacking into cable TV network HBO and stealing episodes and plot summaries for unaired programs, including Game of Thrones, then threatening to release the data unless he was paid $6 million. Behzad Mesri, also known as Scott Vashat, was charged with the hack in a sealed indictment that was released on Tuesday by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan. A spokeswoman with the U.S. Attorney's Office said Mesri had not been arrested and declined to comment on the suspect's whereabouts. The indictment described Mesri as a, quote, self-professed expert in hacking who had worked on behalf of Iran's military to attack military systems, nuclear software systems, and Israeli infrastructure. It also alleged that he helped an Iranian hacking group, Turk Black Hat Security Team, deface hundreds of websites in the U.S. and other countries. The cyber attack surfaced over the summer as HBO was running a new season of Game of Thrones and as the cable network's parent Time Warner Inc. sought regulatory approval to sell itself to AT&T Inc. in an $85.4 billion deal announced in October 2016. The indictment charges Mesri with hacking into HBO from May to August and stealing unaired episodes of programs including Ballers, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and The Deuce. Mesri also stole scripts and plot summaries for Game of Thrones, according to the indictment. It said he obtained credentials that HBO employees used to access the network, then used those accounts to steal data from the company's servers from May to August of this year. He demanded up to $6 million to keep the data secret in extortion emails to HBO staff, some of which ended with photos of Night King, a menacing zombie villain from Game of Thrones, according to the indictment. Reuters was unable to reach Mesri for comment. Prosecutors charged Mesri with computer fraud, wire fraud, extortion, and identity theft. HBO spokesman Jeff Cusson declined to comment on the incident. Quote, as far as the criminal case is concerned, we prefer to leave any comments to the U.S. Attorney's Office, he said in an email. He declined to say if the company's investigation into the breach was complete or how much the incident had cost the cable network.
Gosh, this is, I remember when this was such a ballsy thing.
Yeah.
That he did.
Definitely.
Chose the right show, that's for sure.
Oh,
they would have been like, oh, The Deuce? Yeah, sure, go ahead. No problem.
We don't give a fuck about The Deuce.
You know what? You let us know what people think of it, too, will you? Please? Thanks.
That's so funny. Have you seen that show?
I want to. I just don't have the time.
Yeah,
have you?
No, not yet. I will, though. I like the cast. A lot of really
James Franco.
Really good actors in that, I think. Yeah, Franco, he's great. I want to see that new movie with him. When he plays that weirdo in Cali.
Not the Minuteman thing.
I don't know. I don't think so. It's a true story about this guy who shows up to Hollywood and tries to get movies, and he has a very weird accent and sucks at acting. I haven't heard
of that. I suck at movies, man. I do. People are like, "Oh, have you seen this?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
I watch television.
Same here.
A lot of it.
I'm not really into movies. I prefer the format of TV where you get
binge watching
tons
television.
of hours of stuff.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
I don't want 2 hours of a world. I want 100.
Exactly. It's just like a waste of time where you get an hour and a half and then it's done forever.
I totally agree with you.
There's certain stories which are worth, hearing or whatever, but there's so much more drawing me to TV.
Right. Totally. You're my entertainment soulmate, man. All right. The next item is an article by Mashable. Emilia Clarke isn't here for your Game of Thrones nudity shaming. If you've got a problem with the nudity and sex scenes in Game of Thrones, don't waste your time taking it up with Emilia Clarke. Our beloved Daenerys Targaryen has landed the latest cover of Harper's Bazaar, and in the accompanying feature, she discusses everything from finding love to Brexit.
If she needs help finding love, you can give her my number, just to say.
I think a lot of people feel that way, but I'll let her know.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries, dude. I'm here for you. But the best bit comes with a little rant she goes on about her hit HBO show and the squabble she's picked over the years with some viewers. I'm starting to get really annoyed about this stuff now because people say, oh yeah, and all the porn sites went down when Game of Thrones came back on. I'm like, The Handmaid's Tale? I fucking love that show, and I cried when it ended because I couldn't handle not seeing it, she said to the magazine. And that is all sex and nudity. There are so many shows centered around this, and this very true fact that people reproduce, she explained. People fuck for pleasure. It's part of life. You heard it here first, folks. It's a part of life. You know what? I'm glad that she brought that up. I'm glad because she gets a lot of hell. I mean, people say, oh, she's gained so much weight, and is she going to be naked? And oh, there's Daenerys again,
what?
Naked
Gained
or
weight?
whatever. Yeah. When was it? It was like a couple seasons ago. I remember reading this article about the fact that she wasn't naked because she had gained too much weight or something. And like she had all this fat in her arms or something. And I just thought it was just disgusting because I'm like, first of all, we don't put each other down. Like as a woman, I don't put another woman down, especially if it's a weight issue. I've had my own struggles with weight and I know how hard it is.
Even
but second
guys,
of all, she's fucking beautiful. Yeah. She's perfect, you know?
Yeah, you just don't talk about that. Like,
no,
if you have any
and
class.
Especially in such a hateful way. And then, I saw, and then I read another article, and I can try and bring it up, or if somebody wants to post it to the site or whatever, that's fine. But, she talked about her contract, and it was basically, look, I don't want to be naked just to be naked. If I'm going to be naked, I want it to mean something.
Right.
And so that's why...
Yeah, she legit did the scene where she burned down the Dosh Colleen, right?
Yes, that was her body, and she did it, and people were like, oh, looks like it's all of a sudden not in your contract again. And it's like, no, it was always in her contract. She just didn't want to be naked just to be naked.
Gratuitously.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. It's okay for us to protect our bodies once in a while, but we also understand that if you're telling a story and you're an actor, that's what you're doing. That's your job.
Yeah.
And
it's at certain times it is very important for plot. Like this was a supernatural occurrence with her essentially burning down the Dosh Colleen and everything. So it makes sense.
Yeah, she can't come out in her clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I like her, man. She seems really cool.
I love her. Every article of her is awesome. Every interview. She's rad. Her Rastafarian Targaryen.
Oh my
great.
God. I need to look that up. It sounds familiar.
Have you not seen it?
It sounds familiar, but I can't
It's
remember exactly.
when Coldplay did Game of Thrones the musical.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, Duncan. I'm sending this to you tonight. It's 12 minutes of pure glory. It's the best thing I've ever. It's Tyrion, it's Peter Dinklage, and he's like singing a song like, I'm still alive, everybody around me is dead, and Jon Snow, Kit Harington sings Wildling to Ygritte.
Oh.
He's like, Wildling, you make my heart sing. It's awesome.
That's funny.
You have to know.
Yeah, send that to me, please.
I will. Okay, go.
Our next item is an article by Evening Standard. A British cameraman who worked on Game of Thrones and The Theory of Everything has unfortunately died while filming scenes for a new BBC and Netflix drama in Ghana. Mark Milsom, a married father of one, was in the African country working on The Forgiving Earth when he was killed on Saturday night. The 54-year-old had credits to his name which include blockbusters Saving Private Ryan and The Theory of Everything. His agent, Sarah Prince, said he worked as a cameraman for years, adding he was a well-respected, lovely guy, very talented. There's been an outpouring of grief from people who knew him in this industry. He also grew up within it because his father was a renowned cinematographer. He was a gentle gentleman and loved by everybody, incredibly generous with his time and talent and his warmth. He worked with very big stars, very big directors, and he was very humble in all aspects. He was the antithesis of the raging egos you hear about in the industry. She said an investigation into the circumstances surrounding his death is now underway, with more details expected to emerge over the coming days. Obviously, a catastrophic mistake was made, which resulted in Mark's death. It should never, ever have happened in this day and age, Miss Prince added. A spokesman for the BBC extended their thoughts to Mr. Milsom's family and friends in the wake of his death. He added, "We are deeply shocked and saddened to hear this terrible news. Mark Milsom was hugely talented and a much respected colleague."
This sounds like something bad went down.
Yeah. This is the first time hearing of it. Sounds horrible.
Well, just that the catastrophic mistake never ever should have happened.
In this day and age, like, what happened?
That's anger.
Yeah, that's not good.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Mr. Milsom.
Ditto.
Our next item is an article by Entertainment Weekly. Game of Thrones finally earns its first Grammy nomination.
What?
Woo! So overdue.
Yeah.
So overdue. Winter has finally come for the Recording Academy. Among the nominees announced for the 2018 Grammy Awards is a milestone for Game of Thrones. The HBO fantasy series scored its very first Grammy nomination for composer Ramin Djawadi. Did I say that right?
Ramin Djawadi.
Thank you. Ramin Djawadi. I'm terrible at pronouncing things.
You'd never guess based on the spelling, but I know because I'm a musician and he went to my college and everything like that, so I know a bit about him and whatnot. He's a great.
Then you should be
composer.
reading this one.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
The Music of Westeros is one of 5 nominees in the category of Best Score Soundtrack for Visual Media, along with Johansson for Arrival, Hans Zimmer for Dunkirk, Justin Hurwitz for La La Land, and Benjamin Wallfish, Pharrell Williams, and Hans Zimmer, for Hidden Figures. The Grammy nod, however, isn't a first for Djawadi, who received a Grammy nomination in 2009 for his work on Iron Man.
Ooh,
while Game of Thrones continues to be a major awards contender at the Emmys, except this past year for production reasons, boo, Djawadi earned only a Creative Arts Emmy nomination for Outstanding Music Composition for the Season 4 episode, The Mountain and the Viper. He earned other Emmy noms for scoring Westworld, Prison Break, and Flash Forward. Really? That's interesting.
He's great.
The big Season 7 finale of Game of Thrones, which marked a union of fire and ice, to be as cryptic and non-spoilery as possible. Yeah, Djawadi said this was intended to be its own thing. The trick with this theme, he explained to EW, is that it really had to be a love theme. But when we played it in earlier episodes, you don't want to give away the love too soon. So it had to be a theme that could be a little bit mysterious, a little moody, and you could play it darker at times. I know everybody was expecting them to get together, but we really had to be able to do this slowly. That was the most important thing for me. Also coming off composing the music for The Mountain Between Us, Djawadi will next score Ava DuVernay's A Wrinkle in Time.
That's so cool. I really hope that Mr. Djawadi he wins that Grammy. That'd be great. He's just an immensely talented musician. If you guys, I know I've mentioned it before in the podcast, but if anybody has a chance, I highly recommend going back and listening to episodes of the podcast called Podcast Winterfell, where their host has this segment called Clef Notes, where he covers the music of Ramin Djawadi and breaks it down in detail and shows you how he'll change one note here to change the emotion of this scene. Well, the Stark theme will be playing triumphantly as Robb rides back from battle, or have a couple notes changed to be sad as Ned is about to be beheaded, or little things that he does with the music that can have massive changes for the way we perceive it and the way that he develops.
Well, I mean, you can even talk about the Reigns of Castamere with the way that
you mentioned it today
used. Right.
Tyrion whistling it kind of happily
in a jovial manner, and you're like, oh, that's a cute little tune.
Yeah.
I'm glad for this. I always get happy when people that finally deserve, they get what they deserve, like Tatiana Maslany for
Maslany, yes.
I told you I'm very bad at pronouncing names.
Yeah.
For Orphan Black, or I'm still waiting for Melissa McBride to get nominated for something.
Right.
Just something major.
I I gotta say real quick about Tatiana Maslany and Orphan Black. Like, nobody's done what she's done on that TV show, playing like 12 characters in a season.
And how many years did it take for her to finally get recognized?
It was a joke.
Yeah.
It was like, it's not even a joke. She, like, one of those years, she was up for best supporting or best female actress on a series, right? On a drama series. And it was her in the category and Brienne of Tarth. Not that I think Gwendolyn Christie is a great actress. She's amazing, and Brienne of Tarth is great. But we're talking about a character that had like combined screen time for this season of like 10, 15 minutes compared to Tatiana Maslany with a combined screen time for when you tally up her actors for like, like 10, 15 hours at least. And just what she's accomplished on this TV show is just incredible. Being able to like say that anybody else on TV for that year had any competition to her was just ridiculous, like just impossible. Right. So Absolutely. Finally she won her Emmy that she needed years ago on like season 3 of Orphan Black. And she was beat by Viola Davis one year for her performance in How to Get Away with Murder. And that's the only other one that I like was semi-okay with beating Tatiana Maslany. I've never seen that show. Just because Viola Davis's performance was so strong on the first season of How to Get Away with Murder.
Everything she does is perfect.
Yeah, How to Get Away with Murder. She like really like puts herself out there.
Is that a good show?
Yeah, really good. At least season 1. I haven't. I'm not caught up with it, but season 1 was awesome. Yeah, big time.
Okay, that's the only one I haven't seen of Shondaland.
Of what?
Shondaland. Shonda Rhimes. How to Get Away with Murder is also the same writer who does Scandal and Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, all right, cool. Yeah,
Shondaland is her production company. Anyways, I just revealed a lot about myself.
She's decloaked. Fire at will. We'll be right back with Raven's Calls.
Caw-caw, caw-caw.
All right. Johnny Stitches says, well struck, dog, right after the Hound tears that dude up while wearing that badass helmet. What up, Johnny? Yeah, I love that line, too. I thought that was really funny. And that helmet is badass, dude. Thanks for writing in, man.
Lainey Micel. I like that. Maybe with my kiddos going back to school, I can finally get a chance to get back into the rewatch. Yes, Lainey, please do that.
Otherwise, we're going to start calling you lazy myself. So you better. In weeks from now, when she finally gets caught up, she'll hear that. Hi, Lainey.
Yeah, right, exactly. She'll be like, wow, I hate you a lot.
Alicia Stout says, what I loved about this episode was that it was full of new introductions. Sir Davos, Stannis, Melisandre, Craster, and so much more to come this season. Ygritte! In parentheses with exclamation points. Sansa starts to figure out, albeit slowly, how to start playing this game with Joffrey. And I love how both the Hound and Tyrion come to her defense in the first scene, showing their softer side for her. Side note, I'd like to slap Joffrey upside the head through my TV. Please? With an emotional little emoji face there.
Do it all the time.
Yeah. Observation. Funny how after watching the entire series a few times, you start to realize how much the song The Reigns of Castamere is played during certain episodes. It was Alicia that I was referencing earlier when I mentioned this. I.e., Tyrion is whistling it as he enters the room with a small council. I love his return along with his humor. Such a drastic change with the seasons to come. And he put that bitch Cersei in her place. Booyah!
Booyah! I wanted to do it too.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Booyah, Grandma, me and you. Wasn't that from a Banjo-Kazooie commercial or something? Or Crash Bandicoot? What exactly does that red comet in the sky mean? In this ep, lots of rumors are told by Osha, but most likely dragons, yes? Would love your insight on this, Duncan, and perhaps an explanation from the books.
You got it. Press rewind, girlfriend.
Yeah, and yeah, the books are we get pretty much the same amount of explanation, I think. Not a lot different in the books in terms of what we know about that. Just various interpretations by various people. So yeah, pretty much the same experience on the show. Craster and his many wives shudder. What an asshat, and could he be any creepier? Ick factor galore. And hey, don't talk to my Jon Snow like that. Although he is pretty. With a laughing emoji there. Who else thought, when the Maester died while trying to poison Stannis, that he died with the same poison Ilaria had used? Hey girl, is that a smiley waving emoji there?
I don't know.
I thought. Oh,
she did. She's saying me. I did.
Oh, I did. Yeah. Okay. Thought poison was a women's weapon. Sometimes it is, yeah. Women and maesters. That full-on explanation from Robb to Jaime about Joffrey being his bastard son looked like he just got punched in the gut. Yet he still talks smug like a little boy. Prove it. Funny how back when this season aired, I didn't like Jaime much. But I love Jaime now, and it will be sad when and if his character ever dies. Love it all, and love the podcast. Hashtag power is power. Lady Alicia.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, and I think she meant when the Maester was trying to poison Melisandre there. Yeah.
All right, Lara Willie Swink. Hello, Lara.
Hello.
A couple of things that I noticed that I missed on my first watch. Davos mentions to Stannis that not only the Tyrells, but Randall Tarley is aligned with Renly Baratheon. Funny.
Right.
I would have pegged old hard-ass Tarley as a Stannis man. Yeah, totally. And after Littlefinger and Cersei's confrontation, we see one of Varys's little birds. That's right! Oh my gosh! I said the same thing last night. I said, there's a little bird. A little bird saw that entire thing. Amazing to go back and see those secrets of the show sprinkled in throughout the seasons. Yeah, the little bird, the little kid was scrubbing the floor. And as Cersei walked away and Littlefinger was trying to clean up the urine around him, it showed the little bird scrubbing the floor. Like the shot was actually from the kid, and the kid's like super fuzzy because it's focused on Littlefinger in the distance.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. That's totally true. Good job, Lara.
Nice catch, Lara. That's awesome.
Also, I'm keeping an eye on the Jon and Dany parallels. In this episode, as Daenerys rides through the dry waste of the Great Grass Sea, Jon is riding into the frozen waste behind the wall. Yay!
Awesome.
Oh, you're amazing, Laura.
Yeah.
Finally, going back and rewatching, I was so impressed with Robb. The way he kept his cool with Jaime and countered every one of his smartass remarks with an even more clever and cutting response was so mature and beyond his years. And using Grey Wind to intimidate the Kingslayer was brilliant. He would have made a very good King of the North if, like his father, he didn't succumb to his sense of righteousness, honor, and love. In the Game of Thrones, that'll get you killed every time.
Yeah, definitely will.
Cheers, Lara.
Next comes from Jill Moreau. Hey, Jill. Kristen and Duncan. Ooh, it sounds like she knew beforehand.
We may be friends.
Yeah. No, I knew she knew too. Jason announced it on the podcast on Walking Dead Cast a couple weeks ago, so it was out there. Having all those babies killed was and always will be very difficult to watch. My true, unwavering hatred for Joffrey was cemented here. Yeah, definitely. Seeing Robb bring Grey Wind in to have his chat with Jaime was pretty awesome. Gotta love the intimidation he was going for. Liked seeing Bran as acting Lord of Winterfell. Boy, how he has changed since then. Seeing Dany's baby dragons was adorable. R.I.P. Viserion. All in all, great opener to the season.
Yes.
Oh,
and she did put R.I.P. Drogon in the original, but
you fixed it.
I think she meant Viserion. So
Definitely.
If I'm wrong, Jill, let me know. I think I'm right.
You're right. He's not dead, right? So it's got to be. And also, that reminds me, we got a little scene when we first shows up, and it pans up Daenerys' body from behind, and we see Drogon sitting on her shoulder, and the first thing we get is the sex lady, the one who Viserys hired to teach Dany how to sex good. how
to do good sex.
Yeah, she was the one that was in the bathtub with Viserys and like getting all hot over the concept of the dragons, which like got her all like aroused. You know, she like wanted to see a dragon, and so now she's seeing a dragon. Like, how freaking cool is that, man? Viserys just missed it. A little bastard.
Yeah, well, he doesn't deserve him.
Right. That's so funny now that I'm thinking about it. She's sitting in the tub with him, and she's like, have you ever seen a dragon? And that totally foreshadows him never seeing a dragon, but her getting to see a dragon, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
which
that.
Makes me happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Dave Berg says a solid premiere. It builds on everything from season 1 and does a good job of setting up what's to come in season 2. We have Tyrion showing up in King's Landing as acting Hand of the King. Robb continues his war. Dany starting her journey with baby dragons, and the Night's Watch going beyond the wall. Not to mention the introduction of characters who will play big parts over the next few seasons: sour-faced Stannis, Melisandre, and the lovable Onion Knight.
Yeah, I love the Onion Knight.
I do.
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people, I don't know if you've noticed this over the years, I've noticed that a lot of people just always hate, or not hate, but they just never like the premiere, the first episode of Game of Thrones. And I think it's true. It's a lot of people have more complaints over the years of the premiere. And I think it's a mixture of hype, excitement, and the fact that they need to set up their season.
Yeah.
Right. So,
that's crazy. Because I had heard so much hype about the show, and none of the hype got me excited. I didn't think it was something that I would be interested in. And one day, randomly, I was just like, fuck it. Like, fine, I'll throw it on. And literally within 15 seconds, I was like helplessly and endlessly hooked.
You had those like cartoon eyes, cartoon love eyes. You know what I'm talking about?
Totally. Yeah, instantly. So, I thought it far exceeded anything that I imagined for it, even the pilot episode, so it's surprising to me. And, they had originally shot a different pilot, which people may have had even worse feelings about. Do you know that?
I think I do know that. It was with different characters, wasn't it? Or different
a lot of different actors. Grimm was going to be featured in it. They ended
different Daenerys.
Yeah, different Dany, different Kat. Illyrio Mopatis was designed very differently, more book-like. And it didn't act like people were watching it, and by the end of the episode, they weren't aware that Jaime and Cersei were like brother and sister and like all this stuff. So they had to sort of rewrite it to make the details more apparent. And I think they did a really good job doing that
agree.
Without seeming too explainy. Yeah,
absolutely,
pretty awesome. Emily Reeves says, all of those bastards getting killed reminded me of how King Herod had every boy under 2 years old killed because he was afraid Jesus was going to grow up and steal the crown. Bam! More religious symbolism in this episode.
There you go.
Just adding to it. When have we ever talked about symbolism like this, really, to any extent in Game of Microphones? We haven't, right? So all of a sudden, it's just, in this episode, everybody's picking up on it, apparently.
I'm telling you, we're going to have our own segment. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's the segment of black and white, we'll call it. Like the House of Black and White.
Ooh, I like it.
That's awesome. Yeah, good job, Emily.
Wendy Ott Eppers says, Stannis' maester tries to poison Melisandre. Love this point of view in the book. This little scene doesn't do it justice. Cersei loses control of Joffrey, and Joffrey takes care of his competition. Sansa and the Hound save Joffrey's fool by fooling Joffrey.
Wendy had the greatest comments on this part, like on the Patreon rewatch. It's so funny.
Yeah,
I love that last one. Sansa and the Hound save Joffrey's fool by fooling Joffrey.
I know. I love it. Yeah, I put together, Wendy, I put together a lot of your little comments because you had like little one-liners that I loved. So I just put them all together because I thought they were fantastic.
Yep.
She does them with pictures and everything. Wendy's great.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys liked Wendy.
She did a
when
fantastic
she
job when she was on the podcast a couple weeks ago.
Definitely, we'll have to have her back. Our next is an email from Archmaester Rennie. Hey, Archmaester Rennie. Great job on the Rewatch podcast for Season 1. Now, on to Season 2. There's a king in every corner now. Who said that? Catelyn this episode, right?
Yes, another good line. Lots
Yeah.
of good lines this episode.
Season 2 starts out almost as strong as Season 1. There are some classic moments in this episode, like when Tyrion walks into the small council meeting whistling Reigns of Castamere and tells Cersei she looks beautiful. War agrees with you. Snap! This is perhaps the best season for Tyrion's wit. And we get Bran's wolf dreams. I love Bran seeing himself as Summer in the Godswood pond reflection. Yeah. Then, later, seeing himself as himself in the pond reflection. Oh, I didn't even realize. Melisandre is introduced, and what great casting Carice Van Houten is in this role. And we get, and we get Daenerys wandering in the desert. She'll continue to wander right up to until Season 7. Yeah, if not through the desert, through her own mind and morality. I've come to think her whole plot line through all the seasons up to Season 7 is really just about waiting for her dragons to grow. 2 observations. Baby Drogon is really cute. Craster and his keep are not cute. But both are monsters. We tend to remember that about Craster and forget it about the dragons. Archmaester Rennie. And that's a good point. That is a very good point.
Yeah, I guess monster is a relative term.
Yep.
And, I gotta say, Rennie, I don't think I agree with you about Dany just waiting around for her dragons to grow. I think that, I love her arc. I think that she accomplished a lot and did a lot. And while she couldn't cross the sea until her dragons were grown, I think she also couldn't cross it without the Unsullied or the support of the Second Sons that she left behind, or, the kingdoms that she actually formed alliances with before she left. And
without herself, I think the largest part of the equation may be finding herself and figuring out what it means to be a leader and how she wants to rule.
Absolutely. And she learned that in Marine.
Yeah. So I think that it was about both her dragons growing and their mother growing to be the
waiting
queen.
for her dragons to grow allowed her to grow into the type of leader that she wanted to be, that she felt comfortable being.
Yep.
And without that sense of self, there was no way she would have gotten as far as she did in Season 7. No way.
Yeah, and I think there's been the concept of the Myronese knot, which have you heard of that, Kristen?
Mm-mm.
It's basically the idea that George R.R. Martin created this situation in Meereen and tied himself into a knot in terms of like writing.
How to get out of it.
Yeah, how to untie it, essentially, was the problem. And people have been complaining about it for a long time or whatever. But I think that it ended up working to the benefit of the story as a whole, because the process of untying this knot is essentially the process of Dany like growing and learning and becoming a leader. I think that I like it overall, but I can understand people's frustration with it too.
Well, yeah, Marine was a frustrating time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You're up, right?
Yeah. From Gerald Wilkin. I'm from Germany, so please excuse my English if it's not the best. Yay, Germany.
Germany again. Shout out to Germany 2 weeks in a row. What's up, man?
Yay.
Thanks for writing.
I listened to all episodes of this podcast, and I like it that you cover all episodes of the first seasons one by one after covering them in Season 1 in the first place. So probably so the very first episode of this podcast was done. They talked about Season 1 as a whole.
Yeah.
So now we're going back and doing every episode individually.
Right. Yeah. We covered them in whole seasons. Yeah. Like one episode per season. Right. Cool.
Yeah. I'm also a book reader, and my name is Gerald, and I'm pretty tall, around 6 feet 7 inches. And so my favorite character of The Song of Ice and Fire is someone who is rarely mentioned in the books, and sadly not at all in this awesome TV series, the White Bull of the House Hightower, my real life nickname for a part of my life. But that may be a topic for another time.
You're going to need to write us back and tell us why that was your nickname for a part of your life. I want to know why that was your nickname.
Ooh, write us. Tell us.
Yeah.
When I did a review of the first season over the last few weeks, just like you do, I think I recognized a foreshadowing of Ned's death in and after the trial by combat, which Bronn fights for Tyrion at the Eyrie that I had never heard of before. After the fight, while the King of the Vale is still falling after Bronn kicks him out of the moon door, Lysa Arryn shouts, "You don't fight with honor!" And Bronn simply replied, "No, he did." Well, Duncan, I'm looking forward to hearing it in your voice play if my message gets on the show.
You don't fight with honor!
No, he did.
And after Eddard of the House Stark, Warden in the North, Hand of the King, etc., is probably the most honorable person in Westeros, Essos, and beyond, he had the same fate as that poor falling knight to get killed instead of a Lannister, Tyrion, who might be a Targaryen, and this fuckface Joffrey, who was never a Baratheon. So that's all for now. Thank you for your podcast. I hope you will discuss this in a future episode, even when the episodes where the action happens are already covered. Best wishes from Germany, Gerald. And remember, chaos is a ladder.
Yes, chaos is
Gerald,
a ladder.
that was great. You know what? That's nice. I think that you're right about the foreshadowing.
Yeah, I'd never picked that up either.
That's a nice pull.
Yeah, really good. Very, very good observation there. It's totally true, too, because Ned tried to fight with honor, and, he didn't get the moon door, but he got his head fell, for sure.
Right.
So,
Dunka Shane, Gerald.
Yes, Dunka. Our next email is from Sir Pete of Longwood. Hey, guys. Okay, this one's important. Who was hotter, Ashara Dane or Shiera Seastar? From reading George's descriptions and what other characters say about them, these two are the two comeliest hotties ever to hit Westeros. I'm going with a Shiera. One green eye and one blue. Hot. Plus, she's kind of spooky, and I like that. I'd like to think Nissa was a total smoke show as well. We get no description of her. None other than what Azor Ahai says to her, know that I love you best of all that is in this world. And I just don't see the hero that wakes the dawn falling that hard for anything unless less than a stone-cold fox.
This is hard-hitting commentary here,
Super
guys. There's real deep stuff going on.
As for hot guys, I'm comfortable enough with my sexuality to know a good-looking guy when I read one. I think Rhaegar Targaryen, Arthur Dayne, and Euron Greyjoy would probably have the least problems making the 8. Love, Sir. Discuss. Love, Sir Pete of Longwood. You love making the 8, right? That's like your favorite thing, Kristen. So
yeah.
Next, we have a voicemail from Kira Brown.
Hey guys, welcome back. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, or Turkey Day, or, Friendsgiving, however you celebrate it. I'm going to jump right into my rant. So, frickin' Joffrey. He's still a damn savage. While I was watching the episode, I'm pretty sure that the person that tipped off Ned and Jon Arryn about Robert's gross strong seed also pointed Joffrey towards all of Robert's bastards. And I'm definitely looking at Littlefinger for that. Why else would Joffrey get a bee in his bonnet about hunting them all down? And there just has to be a book detailing the king's mistresses just in case another heir is needed. Or the hookers just didn't know how to keep a damn secret. Poor Megan, by the way, R.I.P. It's got to be really hard to find a good mistress in King's Landing. Secondly, Robb totally would have made such a great king. He had the restraint and strategy in everything except when it came to women. I love Catelyn, but why send her off alone?
Yes.
She does not do very well handling negotiations, and we've seen that twice already. She needs a chaperone wherever she goes at all times. And Dany, when I think of how far she came from reclaiming any throne, it makes me so tired. She's been so lucky and strong to have survived all that's been thrown at her. And I love how she's still a little bit bitter about her jackass brother. He didn't know anything about being a dragon. You can almost hear her say, that asshole, at the end.
Yes.
And for Stannis and Melly they were so way off about each other. And I'm kind of wondering about the Lord of Light and the old gods. Like, how could they be that far off on showing people visions? Like, are they fighting with each other for followers? Like, is this just a Twitter beef that's been blown way out of proportion?
Trigger fingers turned to Twitter
lastly,
fingers.
About Jon. Dude, sit down, young Padawan. You've got to get out in here. You get out in these streets and lose your damn mind. It's crazy because Mormont basically did to Jon what every black mother has done to their child at restaurants, malls, and grocery stores across America. Don't you embarrass me out here. Now we're going to go back inside, and you better not touch anything. You better not fix your mouth to ask for nothing, and don't say nothing until we leave.
Yes,
as I was watching that scene, it kind of hits me. Like, every time Mormont asked Jon who he was, I kept saying, he's King Aegon Targaryen, motherfucker. Like, that's the only thing that I kept thinking. And that's when I kind of realized how important it was that Jon doesn't know who he really is. Even now in season 7.
Yeah.
Of course, it would have changed the story entirely. There wouldn't be a story because he'd be dead. But if he managed to survive with that knowledge, he would just be a real smug bastard all the time. And that is exactly what the world did not need anymore.
Yeah.
Of, again, going back to Joffrey. And kind of Stannis and Renly, too, at this time. They were both a little arrogant and, just thinking that the world owed them something. It's kind of off-putting. And all right, on that note, rant over. I'm going to stop myself before I wear out my welcome and my throat. I'm really glad that all of us Throners have a place to share our thoughts. I really love hearing everybody's theories and feelings, and it keeps us all sharp until season 8. I hope you guys have a great week and weekend, and if I am too busy, I hope to talk to you guys after Christmas and New Year's. Enjoy yourselves. Bye.
Bye, Kira.
Bye, Kira. Thanks so much for writing in, or, leaving your voicemail. I always love hearing from Kira.
What I love is that everybody has so much to say about it, and it's all good stuff,
Yeah, definitely.
People can talk about this subject forever, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, there's really a lot to digest and discover and learn and observe. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so Pete of Longwood, just, learn that. Learn some of the good stuff, okay? Send in something good.
All right, that's our show, episode 53. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
And as always, a huge thank you to Lisa Moreno and Lara Willie Swink for gathering Raven's calls and news. You guys are a huge help every week, and I know I always say that, but we really do appreciate it.
Yes.
And a huge mega astral thank you to our new co-host, Kristen, for joining us. Thanks,
well,
Kristen.
Thank you. A tip of the hat to you, my sir.
I like hats.
I know you do. You're always in a hat.
Yeah, except for when I'm wearing headphones. No, I'm not always in a hat, but yeah, I do love my hats for sure. Next week, we will be covering Season 2, Episode 2, The Nightlands, continuing our Game of Thrones series rewatch. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We would love to read them on air.
Yes.
If you'd like to call us, you can always reach us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY. And we will actually check it at some point, I swear.
If you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast.
And be sure to check out the other great podcasts at podcastica.com. Like Walking Dead Cast.
Yeah, and Strange Indeed. They didn't even wrap that up yet, have they? They're still working on it?
No, I think that they just finished episode 5,
Oh,
actually. So
man.
there's still 3 or 4 more to go.
Wow, yeah, jump on that while you guys still can, because it's fun.
And there is an upcoming Westworld podcast in the mix that was announced last week on Walking Dead Cast with Jason.
Nice.
And Karen's husband, I believe.
Nice. Yeah, with David, right. I remember hearing that,
Yes.
actually, yeah.
They will be doing a Westworld podcast.
And our friend Travis, who's co-hosted our podcast before, including last episode, he's starting a Vikings podcast that's coming up that'll be... I think they're recording for the first time this Saturday, and he'll be hosting that with one of the Shield maidens from the show Vikings itself. I can't remember her name at the moment, but yeah, so that'll be...
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that'll be pretty cool, too. So definitely
Great.
keep your ears out for that. I'll give you guys more information about that as it develops for sure. If you guys want, you can also do us a favor by giving us a like on Facebook and leaving us an iTunes rating and review. We'd really appreciate it. It'll help
Please do that. A lot of the reviews are 2 years old. It'd be nice to have some fresh ratings and fresh reviews.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, interestingly, if you go into the podcast app on iPhone and search for Game of Thrones, Game of Microphones doesn't show up at all. There's only like 8 podcasts that are listed, even though there's like a ton of them that relate to it. The only way you can find us is by searching for Game of Microphones, or by searching, looking through related podcasts for some of the other podcasts that are actually listed when you type in Game of Thrones. So send your angry emails to iTunes for that, and hopefully they'll fix that, because that's a pretty unfair searching system if you ask me.
More ratings and more views would help.
Yeah, help bump us up onto that list, hopefully. So
Absolutely.
that would be awesome. I'll thank you guys in advance for your help with that. All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
Knowledge is power.
Power is power. Do you understand the hearts that would break all over this world?
Yeah, but do you understand the metal songs that would be written as a consequence?